The other question I wanted to ask about this, Joy, is related to quote unquote like implementation or adoption. So, primarily related to people that maybe are resistant or initially skeptical of having a conversation, a group conversation about goals, or maybe like a group conversation about defining the end state or attribute, more of an attribute based goal versus, I guess, like a specific output goal. And so, can you speak a little bit to when introducing this? How can you help bring in warmly the skeptics and help them uh, see how impactful this could be for them?
That's where the timeline is so helpful, right? Because I really invite people, it's only for this amount of time. You give it your all for this amount of time. And it doesn't work for you, let it go, right? So that is really the main thing. Most people will, you know, they'll try it. They'll try it, and honestly, this is where the group participation really comes into play as well, is they'll see other people moving forward. They will see that because we check in every month. They'll see, wow, this person is doing things that I have never seen them do before. Maybe I should give that a whirl, right? Because they'll see the kudos come through for them. They'll see all the other like accolades come through for their peers. And even if they were slightly resistant, it will open them up even more so. So they might start a little slower with this process, but once they start seeing, like, because they'll notice because they know we're all doing it together, and that was the goal from the beginning, is so people don't even have to know what your goal is. Remember, you will just embody it. So that's what I do, is keep the timeline really small so people can just commit to a certain period of time, not a year, right? And then just watch them watch their peers. That's where the monthly meetings come into play, and that's super helpful.
I think that's magical in the sense that as a manager, we a lot of time didn't realize there's a lot of opportunity for us to bring in to help other people to grow. Like the model you mentioned, you're literally creating role models within a team that would otherwise wouldn't be available for other people to see. So that amount of influence is available for any team. It is a matter of whether you choose to leverage that or not. Again, it's a paradigm shift that there's a lot of potential on the table that you can use to better help and influence your team for the best of themselves. That's eye opening to me.
The other side that really stands out to me that I feel like was really struggling to grasp or find like the right vehicle to make this happen. But like when I'm thinking about how do I help, like if somebody in my team wants to grow their confidence or somebody in my team wants to become more aware of their energy, but then you also have somebody who wants to strengthen their CS or architecture skills, a little bit of a different approach. How do you develop a vehicle to give the right room or direction or environment for all of those folks to accomplish those goals in an environment that's supportive and people can help them along that journey? So for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, you can, because if I have a team member who comes and say, Patrick, can you help me become more confident? I'm like, man, that is less concrete to figure out. And I think because that's less concrete, there's more perceived friction and it becomes harder to coach or impact that. So I think that's what I really appreciate is the structure helps create that supportive environment to help somebody along that journey because you're pooling resources, you're getting a lot of people involved, and then you're also from the end state, more attribute oriented model, like they're able to direct that a little bit, I think, more clearly themselves. And so that's something I've really appreciated reflecting. Like it's cool to be able to do all of those things at once, I guess is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and I think for those goals that are more definitely more personal, you might think, or where you're being more vulnerable, it's important to ask, right? And what I mean by that is like, where do you see yourself lacking confidence, right? So I don't know what confidence means to another person. Like I literally had to have conversations with this person, and you tell me how does that look like? Where do you think it's not happening? Where do you think you're not showing up as a confident engineer? Right? The same thing with the energy awareness. Where do you think you're not showing up? Where is it going sideways? How can I help? The CS fundamentals one is that's an easy one to look at because it's like, okay, All right, we'll go learn some design patterns and some algorithms. Here's some sorting. Okay. But again, if you want to tap into somebody, you really need to have, that's where powerful questions are so important.
I appreciate the way you ask those questions, because I think oftentimes the advice around that can be very much so be curious. And I guess going back to like attribution, like or like more attribute oriented, like being curious will help create or generate those types of questions. But I think without that context of understanding like that particular process or kind of that flow, I think it could be really oversimple. Says, oh, just be curious, and then you'll be able to discover those things. But actually, like ask where do you see this happening? I think is a really powerful, precise question.
It's the whole purpose of each one of these goals. Remember, they're the person's goals. So that's why you have to pose the questions, because you have to know what's meaningful and impactful to them around this goal.